Today, we're gonna be doing live product research where we're gonna be showing you how to find profitable products to sell on Amazon, like this one that we are selling here at Jungle Scout, these washable pee pads for dogs. And this product has actually made over $35,000 profit just this year alone. So our goal is to hopefully help you learn some tips and strategies by seeing over our shoulder so that you can do something similar. Yeah. All right, so Jake, do you wanna tell everyone what category or what we're gonna be looking at today?
Absolutely, so you mentioned a category and that's what we're doing today. We're gonna be looking at the sports and outdoors category. If you've seen our earlier episodes in this series of live product research, you know that we're doing this category at a time, one category at a time. And today we're doing sports and outdoors. So let me show my screen here real quick on the product tracker tool, a tool within Jungle Scout to help you really analyze all your different product ideas. We've found a lot of different products so far. As you can see, our full list here. And we've been going category at a time. Last episode, I believe we did the pets category, and we only found one product, this dog buttons. We're trying to find at least 2 products today, but if we just find one, that's great. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to add a bunch of products to a list like this of a very similar type of product that would be good for us to sell. So we'll primarily look at demand, competition, and profitability as our 3 indicators. So if you're ready, we can jump over to our Opportunity Finder tool, which is how we're gonna be conducting most of our research today.
Awesome. Now, just while you're setting that up, we're gonna spend 15 minutes. We're gonna kind of cap it at 15 minutes, which I'm gonna say just from the start so that we don't have to say it later on. You do typically need a lot more time than that. We're gonna do our best to try to find a product that we would potentially consider selling in this 15 minutes, but there's a good chance that there would still need to be more investigation and more details to be found. Yep. This is more so just to kind of give you an idea of our thinking and how we would go about it.
Exactly.
So that being said, let me know when you're ready, Jake, and we can kick the timer off.
Absolutely. Before we do start the timer, I just want to show you what I set up here. So like I mentioned, we're selecting the sports and outdoors category here. So I have that selected from our categories list. And then the main metrics that we're going to be entering here and to the filters here is average monthly units sold. We're looking for 300 and up, so about 10 units per day is our minimum to determine a product with high demand. And now for profitability, we're gonna try to help this out a little bit by using monthly prices here. So $20 as our minimum and $70 as our maximum. That will help us ensure that we're not selling anything under $20 or anything over $70, which is typically gonna be harder to make a sale with 0 reviews. So we're trying to be very realistic here as a new seller or a new product. And then coming down here to our competition slider, we're actually able to move this around to determine which type of niches we want to look at. So we're going to just keep it at medium, even though of course we'd want low competition, but we typically start at medium and then move it closer to low or even very low if we don't find anything, or we're just trying to narrow down our ideas. And now this last slider here is seasonality. So this is especially helpful in Q4 or really any other holiday or event that's happening where you're going to see a lot of increased demand for products that are very, very seasonal. So I brought this down to low to try to eliminate a lot of things that could pop up right now, like Christmas trees, for example. We're almost in December. We wouldn't want to sell any Christmas trees just because they're probably not going to sell past Christmas or leading up to it. Also, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now. So we have the World Cup. I'm sure even using the seasonality slider, we're still going to see a lot of results relating to the World Cup. And while that's probably a good product to sell right now, in the future, it might not be. The World Cup comes around, every 4 years? So that is going to be a tough sell after this increased period of demand. So with these filters in place, I think we're safe to start the 15-minute countdown timer as I click search here.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so with 15 minutes on the clock, and we just searched, we now have 90 results to look through. Great. And right away, Letty, so USMT is United States Men's National Team. Already seeing that show up here. So it's probably going to be hard to eliminate it out of the table entirely. As you can see, like the 30-day search trend is almost 500%, and the 90-day search trend is about 80%. So we're seeing a lot of increased traffic during this time for this type of keyword or that type of product. So we want to stay clear from that.
So you're obviously aware that this is quite seasonal, but if someone else that didn't know this, how would they check to see whether this is something that's quite seasonal?
Exactly, so this first tab here will be a good starting point. So the average units sold over a 2-year period will give you some pretty good indication of that.
Oh, wow.
So you can see here it's really spiked up to
that's crazy.
1,400 units sold in November. The World Cup just started, so that makes a lot of sense. I'm really curious to see what this will look like in December. And then leading up to it, it makes sense that it was over 300 in the month of August. But as you can see going back in time, it's like hardly any units sold. Keep in mind that it is based off of this keyword here, USMNT, which is very specific, but it's still a very good indicator. And we probably had some other results here. So like US Soccer men's jersey. These two here are still related to the World Cup. There's probably a lot of other, niches in here that we can look into. But another way to look at that is just the seasonality tab. So this tab here is great for just looking at seasonality over a 12-month time period. And you can scroll by and see, so in June, it spiked up a lot here. And then as you can see over here, it's actually not that bad. It's looking at keywords as well in this case. So it's actually looking at the keyword USMNT. But I would say units sold would probably be the best way to, at a glance, see if things are seasonal now or if they're just a regular product that is peaking during this time.
Right, so would you say that the units sold is kind of showing you specifically on Amazon, whereas the seasonality is perhaps kind of showing sort of seasonality or popularity for this keyword just in general, potentially off Amazon too?
Yes, I think that's a great way of putting it, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And then obviously search trend here. So like I pointed out earlier, almost 500% in the past 30 days. That's a good sign usually, but in this case it's not, it's way too high. We actually have filters that we could input. So if we wanted the search trend to cap at like 100 or 200%, we could have done that here just to help narrow down this results. But I like starting at this list here. We have 90, so
okay.
With the remaining 12 and a half minutes here, what do we say we try to find one? So I would probably avoid like merchandise like White Sox jerseys, really just any merchandise in general for me personally.
Yep.
Don't like buying product or selling products with multiple sizes. Also, the White Sox is a baseball team that you'll need to get a license for, so would want to avoid that.
Right, that's probably going to be one of the challenges in this particular category. There's likely going to be a lot of licensed type products, which if you're trying to do the private label model, selling your own product, you're typically wanting to avoid those kinds of products.
Absolutely, and I just actually sorted or excluded the word shirt. I could have done jersey as well, but that's another way of just getting rid of those results here. So I'm seeing a lot of, very seasonal, like Ohio State is a football team that's happening right now.
Yeah.
It's playing right now.
So I'd be looking at things like push-up board. At least that's not, something branded. That's just a product, I guess.
I think what's interesting about push-up board is more people do work out around Christmas and after Christmas and the New Year's when they're setting their resolutions. But I think you can sell push-up board all year round, and the data is actually showing it, where it does spike during those Q4 and early Q1 months. But throughout the season, if I come to November, it looks like one of the slowest times was just under 300 units sold, which is our threshold. But even before that, it's usually around that 300 to 400 mark. So I think this is an interesting one. You can check the seasonality to confirm. And of course, it does go up in December. But like I said, that's sort of just the nature of this product. But people are working out all year.
I mean, all products are going to have some degree of seasonality. We're not trying to find something that has none, because there's probably not many products that don't have a little bit of seasonality. But you just want to be able to verify that it can sell all year round, which it looks like this product does.
Absolutely. So I guess if we look at the type of products these are, we could obviously look at it on an individual product basis like this, or what I like to do is just run a search for on Amazon by clicking this icon here. So this will run a search on Amazon for push-up board, and then we can come down here with the Jungle Scout extension, a brand new extension, by the way. So if you're a Jungle Scout user, try this out. This is an awesome extension. As you can see, there's a whole redesign of the overlays here, which gives us a ton of different metrics at a glance. Or what I love is just to pull up the extension with this button here, which is super fast. Like, it's awesome. So if we're looking at this niche here, push-up board, what comes to your mind? If you're looking to potentially add this product to a list, Lenny, what are you thinking of when you see this table here?
Okay, so just to quickly reiterate, we're looking at high demand, low competition, and high profitability as our the primary things that we're sort of judging here. So if we look at the first one at demand, so looking at monthly and daily sales, it looks like it's really healthy. That top one has over 2,000 monthly sales. A lot of them have in the hundreds. There are a couple of listings there that are a little bit lower.
The 61
and
those 63.
260s, because in addition to just everything having high demand, what we're looking for here is that there's high demand, but it's spread out across the first page of results, or the top 10 search results here. That means that if you were to rank in that top 10, then you would also have the ability to capture sales. You don't want to see 1 or 2 listings sort of hogging all of the sales here. So slightly worried that that top listing has a huge share of the push-up board sales monthly. However, it does still look like a lot of the other listings are getting still plenty of sales, 500, 200, 1100, 600.
Yeah.
So slightly worried about the listing at the top, but overall, I think I would give it a pass for demand. There's definitely a lot of demand for it. Looking at competition levels, so now we're coming over to ratings, as it's now known. Now we're wanting to see that they're not too high. I like that there's a couple that are ranking on this first page of results that only have 1. There's another there with 70, and then the ones that, are under 500 there aren't too much of an issue. Yeah. There's, 3 or 4 there that are over 1,000. Those are a little bit competitive, but if there was any of these, if there are any of these that I'd sort of like, have some wiggle room, it's the low competition. You do ideally want to find low competition, but it is possible to sell against higher competition products if you've got the time and money to do so. The demand and the profitability, I would say, are a little more important. So I'd say for the most part, I'd kind of give it a pass as far as the ratings or reviews goes. And then profitability, that one's a little bit harder to judge based purely off of this data, but the main thing I'd look at here is the price. We want to be typically selling above $20 in order to get a reasonable profit margin. And you can see at the very top here, the average price is about $40. And if you skim through the listings, they're all above 25, well, all above $20 and mostly above 25. So I would say it seems like a good product from a price standpoint. Anything you'd add or anything you'd think differently about?
One thing I'd like to add on that is with this top product here that you need to be careful about, I'm actually happy about the price point on that product. So like you mentioned, it's got 53 daily sales, which is 2,600 monthly sales. That's huge. They're dominating, and they have 1,100 reviews or ratings now. But their price point is $25.99, which is above that $20 price range minimum threshold that we're looking for. If this product was priced like $18.99 and everybody else in the category is above like 25 or 30, for example, that would make me more scared, because then it'd be really hard for a new seller to come in, compete with them, and be profitable. But it looks like a lot of sellers under here are selling around that $25 mark or even above it. For example, like this product here for almost $40. They're probably adding some things with it, not just the push-up board. I'm sure they're adding some other accessories, but they're selling pretty good. They're doing about 14 sales per day. So this is pretty, I think, this is a pretty good niche. You could actually just refer to the opportunity score as a starting point, which is exactly what we wanted to find. We wanted to find a high demand niche with a medium competition level. And that's a good starting point, but you want to verify all the numbers like Lenny and I just did right here, rather than just solely using the opportunity score, but it is a good starting point. I totally agree with you. I think it checks off demand, it checks off medium competition, and then profitability. So far it looks good, but I say we maybe dive into that a bit further here.
Yeah, let's do it.
So what we could do is we can use this net profit calculator over here, for example, and then what we'll need to do is we'll need to enter a few pieces of information. So we'll need to go grab a product cost, and we're just gonna estimate this using Alibaba. So if I pull up Alibaba here, let me enlarge the screen for you guys. We're gonna just type in push-up board and hopefully find something similar. So actually, we'll go back to that listing here. Let me pull it up actually, just to see what it looks like so we can get like an accurate image in our head. So we're looking for something like this on Alibaba, just a standard 2-handle. I guess you can move it around. That's what these
extended or
you could I guess move where the handles around, which is pretty
cool. It looks fancier than ones I've seen before.
Yeah, so something like this actually. It's different design, $350, seeing $330, $279, $3, around the $3 mark with a lot of these. And again, we're just really quickly doing this estimate. We're not trying to get an exact cost. So this is a starting point. We'd obviously want to reach out to a bunch of suppliers and ask them for a bunch of different quotes to get a more accurate cost. But in terms of just adding a product to our list of, hey, maybe we'll research that later and in more depth, this is a good starting point. So I saw around $3, Lenny, as the starting point. If we just enter that in here, a lot of our other costs are already inputted here. So if you're not used to the FBA profit calculator, you'll know that there's an FBA fee that's calculated here. Just adds up all the fees based on this product's dimensions. And then there's the net here. So basically when we put in the product cost, we'll see our ROI percentage is 412 and our net profit is $12 per unit. So if we were to sell this product at a $3 cost, we'll get back $12. Now, that's not including a lot of other costs like shipping. Of course, there's taxes. There's a lot of different miscellaneous costs that we should be adding here. So Lenny, what do you say we bump up $3 to be safe to $4?
Yep.
And then add in a shipping cost and a bunch of other like fees just to like be safe here, to go for a worst case scenario product cost. What do you think would be a fair add-on here?
Yeah, that's a good call. Let's see. I don't know, another $3 or something like that.
I guess a good thing to keep in mind, so we'll add $3 here to $7. That is, it is a standard product, so the dimensions are pretty compact, and it's only under 4 pounds. So our shipping costs that we're adding here, an extra $3, $4, should be somewhat accurate. It's not gonna be 100% accurate, but we're just trying to add in a bunch of costs to see our worst case scenario. When you're looking at products like this, you don't just wanna find a product that gets you 100% ROI. You wanna really look at what your worst case scenario would be and then your best case scenario. So for example, if we sold this product at a $7 cost, it's gonna net us 120% ROI. And just for context, we look for 100% ROI on the best case scenario. But we can also change the price point. Maybe we wanted to start selling this at $20.99 just to be competitive and get some sales. Now we're looking at a $4 profit. But then if we go back to our worst case scenario, $25.99 is like what we'd hopefully sell it at.
Yeah.
With a $7 cost, I think that's just getting us 119% ROI.
I'd imagine even at like $8, it would still be pretty strong. That's
basically
pretty much 100% ROI, which is kind of like a good number to shoot for. And
really one thing I'll kind of come back to is if we come back to the extension here, you see at the top here, the average price of this niche, so all the products on page 1 is almost $40. Now, of course, if you're selling this product and you can afford it, you'd probably want to stay close to this top seller at $25.99 just to be competitive, especially early on when you need to get reviews. But it's good to know that you could go up more. So if we were doing that same calculation with $8 at even just like a $34.99, you can see what our profit would look like now at almost 200%, $15 a piece. So I think this is a good niche, Lenny, to start adding these products to our product tracker, which is very simple by just checking however many products we want to add and then adding it to our product tracker. So if this works for you, I think this is a good niche to look into further and add to our list.
Absolutely, I agree, and we've got about a minute or so on the clock. So whilst Jake's doing that, I'll see if there's any questions in the chat. Please leave any questions that you might have in the chat, and we'll see if we can answer a few. But we are going to go through another example and show you, a few more listings, or kind of like go through a few more results with you all. Okay. Don't think I'm seeing any questions here, so we will move on to looking for another product here in just a moment.
Yep, just adding these to our product tracker here, which as you can see is super fast, super simple. When you're on Amazon, you're just browsing, even whether you're just shopping, you can do this pretty quickly. Now you can see I added that to our list here, all the way over here, push-up board. I can use this group overview to get a lot of metrics at a glance here. And the one thing you gotta keep in mind with the product tracker, it needs some time to collect all this data. So you're able to collect this data for however long since you add it, but then you can also go back and see the last 6 months here of units sold.
Yeah, that's so good.
It's super powerful. I love actually using it as a way to take notes. I'll come in here and write like, potentially reach out to the supplier, or like look for, add this to the product, or maybe look at the reviews on some of these products and keep notes on the notes section here. But one thing that you will have to do is once you add it right away, you'll see a lot of data does populate, but then you'll see some data is slow to populate. So just give it some time, usually a couple hours or a day or two at most, and then everything should populate.
Absolutely. So I suppose just to wrap it up here, if you were to kind of move forward on this product, what would be, any of the questions that you might like to ask, or what would be sort of your next steps?
Yeah, I think, let me open up one of these products here. If I'm gonna sell one of these products, I think what I would look at first is, obviously we confirmed at a high level the demand, competition, and profitability.
Yeah.
I would first try to see like, okay, is this easy to sell? Is there any legal requirements, and is there like improvement potential? So easy to sell, I think we can, surmise by saying, okay, it is a standard product, very light. So that will definitely be easy for us to get into Amazon. It looks simple to manufacture, as we saw on Alibaba. There's a lot of products out there already, so it shouldn't be like an insane task for a manufacturer to make.
Yep.
As it seems like they have generic versions out there. And then legal issues, it doesn't appear like this would have any legal issues, but I would just make sure that like whatever design we're going after, like maybe we want to like model after this one, for example. Maybe this guy has a patent on the design. Maybe he's the way he has shoulders, chest, back, and triceps written there. Maybe we can't replicate that exactly. So I would make sure that is sort of checked off before, sending that off to manufacture those notes on like design changes.
Yeah.
And then I'd look at the reviews. So it's 107 or over 1,000 reviews for this seller, and I would do it for a bunch of other sellers as well, and see what people are talking about. Like you might find that like, hey, this is not working or something. Like so, right here, it folds. My only gripe is that the handles are very hard, and there are brands that have softer handles. So cool. If I see that's a common like trend amongst a lot of these products, then I would ask the manufacturer, hey, put some sort of like rubber or put some sort of padding over the grips. And you'd want to do that process to find a bunch of different things that you can improve upon. So I guess to summarize, improvement potential is huge. No legal issues is very, very obvious, but it's a big one that you want to make sure. Liability issues as well. If anyone can get hurt from this, I think this is, workout equipment that's sort of assumed that you're going to be doing some physical activity with it, so that's okay. And then ease to sell. So those would be what I would look at next.
No, those are great next steps. I can't add anything more.
Awesome.
All right.
So let's make our way back to the Jungle Scout Opportunity Finder here with the same sort of filters put in here. So we looked at the push-up board, and now let's look at some more results here.
All right, well, let's see if I can put the time on the clock again. So starting another 15 minutes here. We'll see if this time around we can also just like even just talk through or pick out a few different, words or keywords that sort of catch eye.
One thing that, I think we should draw attention to is like LifeStraw Personal Water Filter. I have a feeling that's a brand.
I'm pretty sure that is a brand, yeah.
And so you wouldn't want to sell something like that unless it is, maybe you can wholesale it if you reach out to them, but we're talking mostly private label here. And so, yeah, this does look like a brand. So you might want to avoid big brands in the same way that we're avoiding like sports teams.
Yeah, sometimes what you will find, actually, Jack, I'll let you keep looking through. I think our camera's died again. We're live. This stuff seems to happen.
Okay, cool. If you guys can hear me as Lenny's working on the video side, one thing that caught my eye, and it says stun ring, and I have a feeling I know what this is, but I have no idea what it is at the same time. And yeah, it's exactly what I thought it would be. So this looks like basically like a stun gun, but it's like a ring, like a brass knuckles. And this looks hilarious, but I'm sure there's a lot of liability issues with this. This might be a good example of something you could sell, but also a good example of something that could carry liability issues. So not saying you shouldn't sell something like a stun ring, but if you're comparing a stun ring versus, push-up board, for example, maybe push-up board would be a safer bet. But yeah, hey, maybe let us know in the comments if you ever used a stun ring before. I'd be curious to know if you have. So cool, we got the video feedback up. 13 minutes left. I think we're good on time here. Lenny, something that's interesting, heated socks, women specifically, rechargeable and washable.
Wow.
I don't know what this looks like.
Yeah, I want to know what this product is.
So pull up a product using the table there. Okay. So I guess just like, there's like a battery pack right there, I'm assuming. Interesting. So I think that's like a seasonal product, right? Because it gets cold obviously in the winter, even though there's some areas like that do get, and this would be beneficial year round, but as you can see here, like definitely
the winter kind of thing.
Definitely peaks as it gets colder. Search volume. Again, this is a very long tail keyword, but I think you can still find a lot of like similarities here in terms of seasonality.
Yeah, one note that I'd make here. Okay, yeah. Cool, this is a really great example of sort of seasonality here for a product.
Oops, accidentally X out of it. Yeah, so that was a good, let me get this back in here, but that was a really good example of a product that, as you can see over the past 2 years, just isn't really doing much. outside of the peak times, it's going to be very hard to sell that product and run through a bunch of inventory. So yeah, let me pull that back up here.
Also, one other quick note as well is that you often will find that these listings or keywords that we're looking at here, they might start out as, they might just be a starting point.
Yes.
So, you know, this, like you said, Jake, is a very long tail. It's got heated socks, women, rechargeable, etc. So it's like, if you wanted to explore that a little bit more, maybe we just go onto Amazon and just start out with, you know, what might be the main keyword, which would be heated socks, and then kind of see what is the demand and the search volume, etc. like for that keyword, and it might lead you on sort of a different path. I don't think I'm not sure if we're gonna go down that path with this particular product, but just a heads up that, yeah, you can sort of go off on tangents or have little spin-off ideas from what you find.
And I guess just real quick, show you how efficient that could be. If you're on a listing like this, you can click up here to look up the keywords in Keyword Scout, or you can type in a keyword from the product opportunity finder like I just did here. And like Lenny said, you can come in here and look up, okay, just heated socks in general, foot warmers, and then go down this rabbit hole of looking for similar products. And it's just a good starting point, like Lenny mentioned, using the opportunity finder.
Yeah, particularly if like you might see that this doesn't have heaps of demand, but usually, you know, that's the case with longer tail keywords. You might kind of go up the chain and see that there is a lot of demand, like we saw with heated socks.
And you can even see the same one. So battery socks heated for men. So very similar. You can probably, I assume this would be a very seasonal product where, yep, it's got a bunch of dead months here in the summer months, the warm months, and then it goes up and then comes down and goes up again.
On the flip side of what I was saying there about, you know, kind of going up the chain back to heated socks, what is cool is that it looks like there's some sort of sub niches built in a little bit. Because oftentimes, like for example, you might look at heated socks and go, wow, there's so much demand here, but there's just an overwhelming amount of competition. What I would typically recommend is like, oh, see if there's sort of a sub niche there where there maybe is a little less competitive, but there's still enough people looking for it. This looks like maybe it has some of that, because outside of just heating socks is like heating socks for women or for men, maybe there's even more out there. So that's like another tangent that's often good to go on as well.
And I guess on that note, we could use, there's so many different tools that you can use product research for, even though they're not product research tools like Keyword Scout, for example.
Yeah.
One thing that you just mentioned, Lenny, would be interesting to try here is using category trends, another tool within Jungle Scout. So I'm looking at this category up here, this tree. It goes sports and outdoors, outdoor recreation, camping, and hiking. There's a tool that Jungle Scout allows you to see the top products in any given niche and sub niche for really any time. So we can go back in time even. But I wanted to actually just see if we can find some similar products here. So if I come down to sports and outdoors, what was it? Was it outdoor recreation? It was outdoor recreation, camping, and hiking. Outdoor recreation, camping and hiking, and then if we could even just like stop there and have a bigger list, but maybe just like safety and survival will be the next one. Safety and survival, and we'll stop there. So this is another way of looking at products. So these are all the products that were ranked 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, however big this list goes over this time. So November 21st and the 3 days prior. So you can select any date range, start your product research from here, for example, if you like a sub niche. So this is another very interesting way of doing some product research, but for the sake of time, because we'll get more data here, maybe we'll stick to the opportunity finder.
Yeah, let's see if we can pick out a few things that we would look into. So stainless steel water bottles, I mean, immediately I'm like, okay, that's something that, some of them are probably patent, but it's like generally to probably be simple to make.
I'd imagine the competition there is extremely tough as well.
Yeah.
Everybody has one of those thermo flasks.
Yeah, I don't think it's something we want to stop on now, but I'm just kind of like picking out things that, as we're sort of going through there.
World Cup soccer ball and everything we probably wouldn't want to sell right now. I'm sure there's some licensing that would need to be done there.
Speedo backpack.
That's interesting. Oh, Speedo probably the brand, so we wouldn't want to mess with that. Youth wrestling headgear. That's interesting. Could be a very competitive one. This does seem sort of seasonal.
Yeah, it does actually look seasonal.
Because I'm sure,
interesting.
I think wrestling, would be a winter sport.
Wow.
So that's interesting. I mean, you could definitely sell it still, but just keep that in mind. It is a winter sport.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
tree climbing gear.
Tree climbing gear is probably the next best one.
Do you think this one would be seasonal? It doesn't look like it, actually.
It looks like there's a little bit of seasonality, but like what happens if you look at some of these slower selling months? So under 150 sales, but what is it priced at? It's at
$67.
$67. So the actual sales is less than what we're typically after, but it's 2.5 times the price of what we would be looking at. So in terms of revenue, it probably makes about the same amount as a product half the price at 300 sales.
This is actually a good example too of starting very high level. So tree climbing gear is technically a niche, but it's not a sub niche. So you would need to come in here and maybe look for certain products and then run the extension on them. So like, for example, if we did like a harness here, half body, for example, we'd plug that into Amazon, run the extension, try it out, maybe do something different with a different type of product here, like these pulleys here. So it's a good example of like starting high level, using the opportunity finder, and then really niching down. I think in the sake of time, we should probably look for something more niche here that we can quickly try to get some information on. Kids punching bag withstand. I can see that being pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So I'll probably want to avoid that right now.
30-pound dumbbell.
30-pound dumbbell sounds heavy.
I mean, it's my rule in life. I'm never going to sell anything that I can't pick up myself.
Cut golf balls. That's interesting. Is that actually cut in half?
Is that
or is that a brand?
I
actually seen
I don't know my golf
pop up.
Yeah, I don't know what the cut is referring to. Oh,
that is definitely a brand. Okay.
Oh, okay, it is a brand. Cool.
Okay, I was thinking they were cut in half. Kango Cooler is a brand.
Okay.
Retractable Stool.
Retractable Stool sounds like it's not a brand. It's a challenge just finding things that aren't brands in this particular category.
Yeah, I can see that being big, and we're not like trying to avoid big products, but it's just something we're looking at.
Yeah, I'd be interested to like bring it up real quick just to kind of see, or even actually, what like an image of it.
Oh, good. The demand is really, really strong here.
High demand, which is great.
Bring up one of these products here.
I feel like I've looked at this in the past. I feel like it might have been in like maybe the $1 Million Case Study or something. Greg found one of these once upon a time.
But you know what's funny is like this could potentially be, if I look at the whole niche now by clicking this icon, this could potentially be a standard product just because it collapses.
Yeah.
So if we actually pull up the extension here really quickly, as it's loading here, one thing that we're gonna be able to do is we'll be able to see whether it's standard, oversized, and then we'll also see the dimensions. So if I scroll over here, wow, nice. Okay, it is standard.
Nice.
And the weights are actually all under like 3 or 4 pounds. So this is actually pretty cool. Let's look at this here. So what comes to mind? I think the demand is like kind of all over the place, but it's pretty spread out other than that top seller.
Yeah, so I feel like it's pretty spread out. There is just one top seller, but I think it'll check out okay as far as demand goes. Some of them are slightly lower, but then I'm also seeing the average price is about $27, so it's slightly higher than kind of that $20 mark, so that might sort of even out. As far as ratings go, there's 3 there that stand out as having really high ratings, but we are also seeing some other listings in this top 10 that have only got a few hundred reviews, so that makes me feel better about that. And then price point overall seems pretty good. There's that one listing for $20, which is kind of the bottom of what we want, but the rest are all kind of above that, and some are even $30 to $40. So I'd say it's sort of high level, kind of a pass for all those things for me.
I agree. And there's probably so many different ways that we could variate this. So let's just real quick with the time that we have maybe check this on Alibaba. So retractable stool. Let's go plug that in here. Try to get some sort of estimate. Little stool. Can't spell.
You just need to
fold stool maybe. Or it doesn't fold, it collapses.
I think you butchered that word.
Yeah, I definitely butchered it. Okay, so these are actually very similar to what we're looking for.
Yeah.
$8, $3. Ooh.
380.
3 to 4. 3 to 4. 3 to 5, or 4 to 5. I feel like you could be safe in estimating 4 to 5.
4 to 5, yeah.
Just to be pretty safe here. So if we come back here, maybe pick on this product here, the top product. Looks pretty similar to what we were just looking at on Alibaba. If we put in a $5 cost here, just to be safe, without shipping, we're going to be getting almost $11 back with a 200% ROI. And again, we're looking for 100% ROI. So if we estimate maybe $3 more
Yeah.
for shipping, and we go up to
I think
$8.
so.
We're looking at exactly 100% ROI, so $8 back. So that would be your, I wouldn't call that your worst case scenario yet. I'd maybe go up $1 or $2, like so at $9, maybe 50 cents. If we're selling at that $25.59 price, we're looking at just under 70%, which isn't bad. You don't need to always be at 100%, especially when you're running deals. But you want to be able to eventually get to 100% and maintain that. So whether that's increasing your price and like say, hey, maybe I want to be selling at 70 or $27.99, which is 99 cents over the average price there. You're getting closer. But if you can get that product cost down, then you'd be able to get closer to that 100% ROI.
I'd be sort of hoping to get my product cost down. I guess it's like my opinion here would be, absolutely hard stop at $9 product cost. Ideally, I'd probably be looking to get it like $1 or $2 cheaper. I'd feel a lot more comfortable about it. I feel like at this price, there's not heaps of wiggle room there if any expenses go up or anything in the future. But also, it's not terrible either.
Yeah, I think what we would do here is add this to a list, keep a note saying or even a screenshot and saying, okay, we need to get our product cost down to $9 if we're selling at $27.99, or if we want to sell at just below the average price of $27 and we go $26.99, what do we need to get? So we need this to be at probably at least $8.50, I would assume. So if we do some, okay, so even like $8.60 here will do the trick, right around $8.60. So we could leave a note saying we need to be able to get this product for $8.60 per unit, landed essentially, including shipping and a bunch of other little fees, to be able to sell this product. And that's what we'd go to the supplier with and be like, hey, what's the price per unit after a bunch of different quotes? If you don't get under $8.60, then unfortunately that's just gonna maybe not stay on your list any further. So this is perfect for kind of adding that level of detail.
Okay, so what do you think? We add this one to our product tracker?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so as Jake is kind of doing that, this is sort of the process that you rinse and repeat. We've now done this for 2 potential product ideas, but what we recommend you do is kind of go out and see if you can get 5 to 10 ideas that feel fairly strong at this point. As you saw, we weren't getting specific quotes, so there is still more work to do to verify the costs of these. You would reach out to suppliers, like Jake said earlier, to get more specific quotes on the product cost. You could also go to a site like Freightos, which would allow you to get estimates for how much the shipping would be. Once you've got the product cost and the shipping cost, then you'll be able to get a more accurate landed cost, which will be able to give you your profitability a lot more accurately than what we've talked through today. So those would be the next steps, but you don't need to do that right now. It's more about quantity over quality. You're doing these really quick calculations to see if you can get that list of 5 to 10 potential ideas. Then you would go through and narrow those down and then get quotes on the top products from there.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll jump into a couple of questions here. I've got one here or a question from James, who says, the collapsible stool to me says liability all over it. Someone sits on it and it collapsed and hurt them. Hello, lawyer.
That's a good point.
That's a good point. That's something you always definitely want to be asking is, things like, is it easy to sell, etc., but also what could the liability be like? How much risk do you think there is? Yeah. I think that's a valid question to ask. I'd maybe be looking at reviews to see, particularly like the 1-2 star reviews, has this happened very often? This is, if you were gonna go with something like this, I'd be more likely to get a third-party inspection on it. Yeah. It's a good idea to do that anyway, but with products like this even more so, because they typically, inspection companies, they've got standard checks that they do, but they've also typically got the ability to take your product into a lab and do all sorts of random specific tests. So I don't know, for a product like this, they might do a test where they put a lot of weight on it and see, can it hold this much weight, whatever, 400 pounds for 24 hours, or they've got specific tests that they can do.
Yeah, and you could always obviously order samples as well and try to do that yourself.
Definitely.
I agree. Using a third party would be a better, more safe way to go if you're really worried about liability.
Yeah, and like you said, the samples will tell you a lot as well. So you want to be getting samples of everything, and
Yeah.
I think you'll get a good indicator of like, is this a really hard plastic or material, or is it something where it's like, oh, I don't know if I'd like to sit on it. Yeah, so definitely a good thing to call out there.
Yeah.
Let's see. Question from Mike here. I have a question. So on Alibaba, sometimes the products are advertised $3 to $4, but when you message the manufacturer about being interested, they raise the price of the product to $6 to $8.
Yeah.
This is very common, which is, again, why I'm saying that what we did was just a quick and dirty estimate. You do have to reach out to them to get specific quotes. What, unfortunately, a lot of suppliers do, they put a lower price on the listing to get you in the door, to get an inquiry. Then they tell you the real price, which can sometimes be higher.
Yeah.
That's why we were sort of looking at a bunch of listings, and to be honest, we are just sort of hoping that all of these listings, the average of them is gonna be roughly right. But yeah, unfortunately, you're not gonna know for sure until you reach out to them.
Yes, and then you could do what we did as well. We took the higher end of all the averages we were looking at, and then add a few extra dollars for shipping, because what they're putting on the page there is the per unit price without shipping. So when you reach out to them, of course, it'll probably be a different number. And it's also dependent on how many units you buy. So if you can buy 1,000 units, it's gonna be cheaper than buying 500 units. So depending on all those factors, I would add a few dollars to your estimates in the beginning, and that will hopefully help you decide whether or not this could potentially be a profitable product, not if it is a profitable product. So it's all just a starting point to get you thinking, should I waste any more time on this product idea, or should I continue looking further and reach out to the supplier?
Okay. Talbot asks, is Alibaba worth it? Or are there any companies in the US because of the expensive shipping fees? What do you think about that, Jake?
I think Alibaba is definitely worth it. If you want to find a manufacturer near you, so whether you're in the United States or some other country and you just want to look for manufacturers near you, there's other resources out there. A lot of them won't be as user-friendly as Alibaba. They sort of dominate the online supplier database world. A lot of other companies like ThomasNet is a good one for US suppliers. They're just sort of behind on usability and the UI of their website, or the UX of their website. But what you can do, and this is becoming a very popular topic now, is reach out to manufacturers. It's gonna be a little bit more old school, and you're gonna wanna do it depending on the materials they make. So in the United States, we make certain materials like metal and plastic. I'm sure there's a bunch of other materials out there that we specialize in, and we have a bunch of big and small manufacturers in every state. So you can reach out to them directly, ask them if they have molds or if they can make a product that like you're looking for, if you wanna do it in the United States or in your country. But Alibaba is still a great database to use. You can also usually even filter by country. You may not find products with the USA filter in your niche, but sometimes you will find them. So all around, Alibaba's great. They're the leader in what they do, but you can certainly outsource directly through more traditional outreach in the United States. I guess on that note, there was a good question here about how to check which seller is providing good quality of products on Alibaba through their profile. So let me actually show this real quick on my screen here. So if we go to this here on Alibaba, what you can do is, if we just do a search term for Stool, for example, one thing you can do before you even start looking at products, and typically we would do this, but in the sake of time, we didn't today. You can come over here to the supplier types and check trade assurance and verified supplier. That will do two things. Or really just one main thing. That will make sure that the supplier you're working with offers trade assurance, which helps you, like in the case that something were to go wrong with your order. Alibaba will protect you. And then verified supplier is usually just Alibaba's way of verifying the legitimacy of suppliers. So I would check those off, and then you can even see some badges here. But another way that you can actually do it on like a seller basis is coming over to this section over here under verified supplier, see how long they've been in business. You can actually just go directly to their seller account there and see what types of products they sell. But another way of doing this is actually using Jungle Scout, is copying and pasting the legal name of the supplier in a tool called the supplier database. So you can use a supplier database here in Jungle Scout type in the name of the company, and then you'll see whether or not they've done any or imported any products into the United States. So that's one way of checking the legitimacy of suppliers, is using Alibaba or also using Jungle Scout as well.
Nice. Okay. Let's see. Let's go through this list here. So in a minute, it says, I think the hardest part to factor into your net profit is PPC costs.
Yes.
Not to mention how many of your potential competitors are brand registered. So yeah, maybe we can break that down into a couple of parts. So Jake, would you just factor in a percentage or something for PPC costs? How would you approach that?
Yeah, I typically just add a few dollars. There is a way you can quantify it. Some people do get down to like the dollar. They try to estimate how much they're going to spend on advertising and then factor that in as like a per unit cost. However, what I found is your advertising strategy may change. You may come out of the gate firing and then just try to get sales. So you're spending. You're probably even losing a little bit of money, or your ACoS is super high. So for that reason, I don't like to quantify it down to the exact dollar. I just add another dollar or two to our total cost, like we showed you in the profit calculator, just to add a little bit there. But another way of doing it is actually looking at your break-even ACoS. So there's a way to really determine what ACoS you need to hit in order to stay profitable. But like I said, depending on your goals, you may not be using advertising to stay profitable. You may be using advertising to get reviews or to increase your sales rank. So that's the reason why I personally don't do this, go down to like an exact science of getting the exact dollar amount. I'll just add a few dollars just to cover myself in that event.
Yeah, good call. And also keep in mind that ideally, and again, this comes down to your goal, but you ideally long-term want to have your organic sales be much higher than your advertising sales, so that when you take your advertising cost and sort of average it out per unit across all of your sales, the idea would be that, it's not a super huge percentage on average of your per unit sort of cost. And then the other side of it is not to mention how many of your potential competitors are brand registered. Yes. What I'd say there is that in Jungle Scout, you can look at something called LQS, or listing quality score, which kind of gives a rating of how good those listings are based off of different things like their images, bullet points, title, description, or A+ content, how well all of that is optimized. Lower scores means that they are not as well optimized. So that's something that I would look at. It is a good idea to kind of be aware of how many of your competitors are brand registered, and just looking at their listing to see if they've got A+ content or not is probably the easiest way to do that. But for me, it's not necessarily a deal breaker. It's like nice to know and have that background on your competitors, but I personally don't find it as something that is absolutely necessary for me to do, or like to sell against people that don't have brand registry, because I think more and more people are now, which is a good point. If you're thinking about selling, I'd highly recommend getting brand registry. In the past, I've said that it was more of a nice to have as soon as you can afford to get the trademark and get that happening. Whereas these days, I feel like it's becoming more and more necessary to compete at all. But yeah, thanks for the question and comment there.
Yeah.
Bilal has a question here. Deli containers and Ziploc bags. What do you guys think? Okay, so my thoughts initially, I'm thinking they sound pretty simple to make. They're not overly complicated products. I'm gonna imagine though that they're gonna be very cheap products. They sound like they could be under $10 or $10 or $12, and anything in that price range, really below $20, your profit margins are very, very slim. So that's probably like the big thing that jumps out at me, is that it feels like a very cheap product.
Yeah, I think I'd also say that you're competing directly with these big brands like Ziploc. I think that's actually a brand.
Okay, gotcha.
I could be wrong on that. I think they're a brand, but you're competing with these big guys that are household name brands. So if you're going to maybe sell something like a deli container or a Ziploc bag, then you need to probably be different. You need to either provide not just like a different quantity or different color. You probably need to add it to something. So like combining these products together potentially, or adding like one with labels and add the marker, or do something different to stand out, because in a niche like that, it's probably gonna be very hard to compete with the top sellers who are in like Walmart, Target, Costco, and all those name brand stores. So yeah, just try to be different in that category if you wanna sell in that.
Yeah, actually that comes back to something we didn't talk about heaps today, but the idea of improvement potential.
Yes.
So a big part of that is finding ways to differentiate your product, and is something that's more and more important today. As more people are selling on Amazon, it's very important to differentiate yourself. So that's like another whole thing that I'd be asking for any product idea that you consider. So for example, the retractable stools.
Yes.
I think as we were scrolling through, I think I was noticing like they all look exactly the same from what I could tell real quickly. So I would be thinking like, oh, how can I make this different? It could be as simple as like maybe you can have like a prettier design or something, like maybe that would be enough to make it different, or maybe you can bundle that stool with, I don't know, a footrest or something. But yeah, it's important to differentiate and always be thinking about that with any ideas that you're considering.
You know, on that note, there's a question about improvement potential. The question is, if you ask a supplier to make an improvement on one of the products they sell, they usually, increase the product price almost double. Is that okay? Almost double, I guess that's like really subjective on like the improvement you're asking if they can do it, and the supplier that you're working with. Of course, if you ask for something that is different than what they do, they're probably going to increase the cost a little bit, but that's where you reach out to a bunch of different suppliers early on and then get a quote on that. So rather than just reaching out to suppliers saying, hey, I like that product you sell, I want to sell it, and then you start talking, and then eventually, okay, I want to change something, and then they throw a different number at you, it's better to actually just reach out to a bunch of suppliers who sell that same type of product with the improvement potential idea that you have in mind, and make sure it's very clear that they can understand what you're trying to do differently. And then all the quotes you receive back, you'll be able to compare. So yeah, I think you're gonna pay a little bit more for an improvement potential, especially if it's not just like a design, if it's like adding something or functionally doing something. Like in our case, we talked about adding softer handles to a product, like adding just like a little pad or something to it. That's probably gonna cost a little bit more, but in the end, it's probably worth it. And you could potentially even price your product more than your competitors, as long as you're like calling that feature out as like, hey, our competitors don't have this, but we do. And then inherently your price is gonna be a little more expensive because of that. So yeah, that's one way of going about it.
Yeah, I agree. The only way to know for sure whether that's a fair price or not is to get a whole bunch of quotes, and then that will tell you, give you the average value of that on the market. But yeah, and like you said, there's a whole varying different degrees of product improvements. Like if you're adding more grip onto the handles, like thicker grip or something, that may not be as expensive as if we said like, okay, we need our push-up board to be made longer and of a stronger material or a lighter weight material or something. Like those are probably bigger changes that will cost more. The other thing that I've encountered before is they'll sometimes ask for you to pay for a mold fee. So this is like if you're creating something new or changing the product, they might need to create a new mold in order to manufacture the units. Sometimes rather than increasing the product price, they might say like, okay, it's gonna cost $2,000 or something for the mold fee, and that's for them to create the new mold, but then maybe the individual product price mightn't be too different from what you were paying before, because you've paid for them you've covered their expense of the mold fee. So that's something that I have seen as well.
Good question.
All right, so, oh yeah, this is a good one, I think. So from In a Minute again. Also, it'd be nice to see how quickly some of these products got reviews. If one receives 1,000 reviews within less than a year, I would be suspicious of it being a Chinese manufacturer, hard to compete. So Jake, is there a way to see how many reviews somebody has gotten over time?
There sure is, and I'm trying to pull it up here on the screen. So let me show you how to do that here. Inside of Amazon, if you're on a product, so I use the top seller for the Stool one here, and they have 3,100 ratings. They launched, when did they launch? They launched in 2019, so that's a lot of reviews within 3 years essentially, about 1,000 a year. It's not impossible. In fact, we're almost at 1,000 reviews in our first year and a half, almost going on 2 years now. So it just depends on the category. But what you can do is in the trends graph here, I'm gonna pull up I'm gonna get rid of some of these and then pull up the rating count number. So this will now show us how, like when, I guess like this, when they got these reviews. This big dip here, they probably got dinged. So it looks like they went from 1,000 to 500, but then those got reinstated. So they probably just lost some temporarily. Amazon maybe incorrectly removed them. But you can actually use Jungle Scout, the extension in particular, to look up a product's reviews. Yeah, and you see how that climbs up. And we're just doing this at a product level. If I go back to retractable stools and pull up the extension here, I think you can do it on this page as well. I could be wrong. Let me double check here. But there are some nice hyperlinks. Like you could actually see like the monthly sales at a glance here. So you can look at the last 6 months, 3 months, 2 years, and look at sales like this over time. And then for reviews, let me see if you can do that. It doesn't look like you can do that right now, but the best way of doing that would just be exactly the way I showed you, is kind of coming back to listing, using the extension, and seeing that over time. I like to look at that as well. One thing I talked about before is this date first available column. This is one of my favorite columns to use. Oftentimes when I'm doing niche research, I'll actually come up here to the filter results and enter the exact same filters that we used earlier in the opportunity finder. So the price range, maybe we'll do, so let's see, the rating number, or no, sorry, ratings, I'll go, you can do like for competition, maybe you guys want to see like under 200. And then let's see here, monthly sales, we'll do a minimum 300. And then I go apply to see all the products that meet that criteria. It's only 2 on this first page. I could load more results and go past page 2 to see additional results. But what's interesting is like you see this product here ranked 13th on the search results, launched a couple months ago. So yeah, a few months ago. And so does this seller that just came in on page 2. And he's doing about 10 daily sales a day. This guy's doing 34 daily sales. I wonder why he's on page 2. He probably just had a bad search result. Like sometimes that happens where even if you're number 1 in the category, you might not show up on page 1 for a random given search. So this date first available column is really strong, but also just using the extension on any product tool to see how fast products in the niche are getting reviews.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. I see Survival Geeks posted a couple of times here. I'm ranked 141 in the webcam category. It says that I'm selling 360 units a day, and the reality is I'm just selling 6 units a day. Why is the Jungle Scout data not accurate? What I'd recommend, Survival Geeks, is to reach out to our customer support. So just email us at support@Jungle Scout. Send us in the ASIN of your product and send in this message as well. We'll basically do a deep dive and check out your ASIN and see if we can figure out what the discrepancy is there and why it might be saying that. So yeah, definitely reach out to us with your specific ASIN and we should be able to figure out what's going on there. Okay, let's see, what's this one? Hello Eunice from Paris. Sometimes when you can contact a supplier from China, they do not accept or to send an example to check it out before making the command. Any advice? So it sounds like you're asking for a sample, but the supplier is saying that they just they don't want to send that and they want to move forward with just the full order. Any advice? I've never come across that situation. I actually think that's quite strange. I would continue looking for different suppliers. It is very important, I believe, to get samples from multiple suppliers. That's usually the one of the last things to do to help you decide on a supplier. You'll see in videos on our channel and the $1 million case study and so forth, where we talk about the different things the different considerations working with a supplier. The quality of the product is definitely a big one, so you want to get different samples from different suppliers. And you want multiple ones. Sometimes you get the first one and be like, oh, this is actually great. But it's not until you get different samples that you either might realize that there's a better one out there or there are worse ones out there and it reinforces your decision with the first supplier. So you definitely want to get samples. The other things that we do talk about is, the suppliers, speed to respond and how easy they are to deal with, etc. But certainly the product sample is an important one, and I would keep reaching out to different suppliers, because to me that seems odd that they don't want to send you one.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so I saw a question here. Love to get your thoughts on this too, Lenny. So question is probably the question that a lot of people have is, what is the best way to refresh your search when you are tired and hopeless and searching for a product? So Lenny, like if you're, I guess this question is like, if you can't find a product, you're hopeless, like what sort of is your go-to? Like what are you thinking? It's like your last ditch effort, like how can I find a product, your best way of finding a product? Any advice or anything that you would do differently?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm trying to think. I mean, it's ultimately you do need a lot of determination and grit. Like I feel like it can be exciting, motivating to watch videos like this, watch people like us that have done this before and showing you the process and showing you the cool data that you can see on Jungle Scout and so forth. But like, I don't want to gloss over the reality that a lot of the time it's just like you by yourself on your laptop spending hours going through things and looking through lots of results that are not good. Even the products that we looked at today, again, is just very high level. We think that there could be more there, but we would need to like dig into it more. Yeah. And upon us doing that, we would probably eliminate a lot of the stuff that we found in like 10 minutes. And that's just the process. It is hard, and you're gonna have to just grind and get through a lot of products. It's not super glamorous, and we try hard to not give the impression that this whole business is super easy, because it's not. It's not all Lambos and lots of money. So there is a big part of this which is just kind of grinding, and you just got to keep going through the process. I don't know. I can't think of anything more specific, but I do want to at least touch on that. I
think to add to that is like you sort of mentioned it, is it's very long-term focus. Like selling on Amazon isn't a short-term goal, in my opinion. You're most likely not going to be able to hit a home run out of the park and make a lot of profit right away. It's a long-term goal to sell a product, get it to a lot of reviews to where you can sort of scale back your efforts and be able to see some profit there. So what I would ask is like, what's causing you the delay of choosing a product? Like you just can't find any product, and if that's the case, like what is it that you're having trouble with? Is it like you just can't find any in-demand products? You're looking at products that just have too much competition? I'm sure there's one of those just metrics that aren't a home run for you, but what I would say is you do want to definitely spend a lot of time doing product research, and don't just like find a product tomorrow and decide to sell it. You want to compare it with a lot of different products, but you also want to make sure you get out of that like analysis paralysis stage. Like just eventually you're going to need to sell a product, and if you start soon rather than later, within a year or two from now, you're really going to appreciate the fact that you did just start. So if you have a few products that you're looking at and there's just something that's just not there for you, I would just potentially just try your best to weed it down to that one. Spend some time doing it, but also just know like the sooner you start, the better. And you don't have to have a home run with your.
Than what you're saying, and I don't know, some might call it cliche, but it is so true. But I would always come back to, what is your why? Why are you wanting to do this? Like, it's hard work, and unless there's either a really great payoff or you're, typically we're more motivated by avoiding pain than we are seeking pleasure. It's like, you might be working a full-time job or studying full-time, or you're a parent, and so you might already not have a lot of time, and it's like, it's a lot easier to like sit on the couch and watch Netflix than like stay up at night in Jungle Scout and on Amazon looking for product ideas. Like, it takes a lot of effort to do that and consistently do that to the point where you're building a whole business. So yeah, do just come back to, why are you doing this? Like, is this because you hate where you are in, like you're not enjoying your job or your current situation, or maybe you're trying to support your family or your parents, or there's lots of goals, but like always come back to that. And when I've done that in the past, I've always just realized when things are hard, I've always realized like I have no other choice. Like, yes, this is hard and I kind of want to give up right now, but like the goals that I have and the situation that I want to change is just so important to me that, you know what, I don't have any other choice but to just keep working on this until it works. There's like this awesome image that I've got saved somewhere on my computer. I don't know, it's done the rounds on like Facebook, but it's like this little gold digger digging a tunnel, and like he turns around, but he's like right next to the gold. And I always like think of that whenever I feel like giving up on something, is just like you don't know that you could just be around the corner from that success. And even then, it's not like you reach success and then like life is easy. It's like there's always still more work in front of that. But I don't know. I guess all I'm saying here is just don't give up. Cling to the reason why you're doing this and keep going.
Awesome.
All right. Got one here from Tino who says, once you launch a product, what is the best way to get sales velocity? I am finding that ads are slow and eating up a lot of money. How long should it take to see more organic sales? What are your thoughts here, Jake?
Yeah, I think, of course you could use pay-per-click advertising on Amazon. I think that's the fastest way to get your first initial sales. As long as you're okay with potentially, maybe not losing money, but not making enough money or making your money back on just advertising, that's probably the best and fastest way to get your sales velocity up. But I think one of the things you need to do as well is like increase your rate of review. So using advertising, using coupons, deals, and promotions together in a lower price even to get those sales, but then make sure you have a follow-up strategy to get reviews. So if you're using Jungle Scout, there's review automation to help send those review request emails out to customers, and that is proven to increase your rate of review by just asking more customers for a review. But even if you have the opportunity to add product inserts into your packaging to ask people for feedback, I think that's powerful, because once your reviews get up to a certain mark, it's always different. This is very arbitrary. But if you can get up to like 100 reviews, for example, that consumer trust is built in now, and people will click your listing organically and feel confident in buying it. Again, 100 is just like a random number I'm throwing out there. It could be 20, it could be 50. I would say once that focus on getting more reviews, but in order to do that, you need to focus on getting more sales. And to your question, I think using advertising and really like pairing that with coupons and deals will help you get those sales. One thing I think I'll add too, it's really on the topic of advertising, is take advantage of the different ad types. So sponsor brand video campaigns are awesome. Really test out all the different campaign types, sponsor display, all the different targeting types of those campaign types, and just test them out. Eventually, you might see a campaign really pop off, and then you can identify, okay, video campaigns are working, let me just keep feeding those. So I would really focus on that. Videos are great to have on your listing, of course, as well. So test, and just keep trying to get more sales to get those reviews up.
Nice. Just to add on to that, in addition, I'd say that probably when you're starting out, I think probably your biggest lever is gonna be your price point. Imagining that you don't have any reviews or very little reviews, your price is the biggest thing that will probably help you get more sales initially. And I don't think I've never found like a secret formula or anything to know what the right pricing amount is. But one thing that I've noticed with some people is that they hold on to their profit margins too tightly in the beginning. So let's say that everyone's selling their product at $25 and you ultimately want to sell there too, and you're like, oh, I don't want to reduce the price too much, so you drop it by say $2 right now. And then you spend $500 in PPC, but because you've got no reviews, you don't get many conversions. So you've more or less lost that $500. You've lost that $500 and you haven't really gained much from that. Whereas what might have been more effective is like maybe you should have dropped $5 down to $20, and maybe by being $5 cheaper than everyone else and then running that $500 in PPC, more people might have been willing to purchase from you because of the steeper discount, even though you have no reviews. So I think you need to kind of figure out like how steep do you need to go in order to convince people to buy your product when you've got no reviews. And I don't know what that amount is, but yeah, like I was saying, sometimes people don't go steep enough, and then their PPC efforts and so forth perhaps aren't, are a little bit wasted. Whereas if they would have just gone a little bit steeper to begin with, and yes, lost more money, but then they might have gained traction quicker, if that makes sense. So that's like one thing to think about. One good example is when we launched our washable dog pads. I remember I typically like to be really aggressive, and so we dropped the amount. It was like, I think it was like probably like $10. Was it normally like $30? And then basically it came down to like $20. So it was significantly cheaper than anyone else, and it really worked. I remember the number of sales that we got in the first few days was just insane. It was way more than we needed. And in hindsight, I realized we probably didn't need to drop the price quite as much. Instead of dropping it to $20, we probably could have just dropped it to like 22 or 23 or 24, and we still would have got that influx of sales, but maybe held on to a little bit more profit. But that's kind of the balancing act that you're trying to figure out there. So I don't know, something for you to think about. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
Okay, Eunice says, any advice to get reviews, comments for your first product? I think that's what we just gave some good tips there. Okay, there's a comment here. I tried to connect with your courses, but those are also very expensive. But thanks a lot. You have been my motivational partners. Yeah, thanks for the comment there. For those of you that aren't aware, we do have our own course called Freedom Builder Bootcamp. You can check that out at freedombuilderbootcamp.com. If you're someone that responds really well to having a little bit extra hand-holding and really detailed videos step by step, then I recommend checking out that course. We've got a exclusive community that goes along with that, and regular live coaching calls as well. So that one just essentially I would describe as even more hand-holding than just joining up and getting the Jungle Scout tool. It also does include a year's worth of Jungle Scout as well. So if you learn well through courses, then I recommend checking that out. However, if that is not affordable for you, or not for you, then the next best thing I'd say is to check out this YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. We've got videos on this channel, I think, that cover just about every topic. One in particular would be how to sell on Amazon. It's an hour-and-a-half video that really quickly goes through all of the steps that you need to know. So that's a really great sort of starter course, if you will, to learn all the steps. So plenty of resources to help you out no matter your budget.
Yeah, we also have a link down in the description that you can use to see all the Jungle Scout plans like Lenny mentioned, including the Freedom Builder Bootcamp course. So make sure to check out that link down in the description.
All right, maybe we take one or two more questions before we wrap up.
Absolutely.
Any that you've seen there?
Let's see here. Here's a question from Amanda asking, how does a buy box work? When you start with a product and there's only one seller, do you automatically split the buy box? Now, I assume this is not for private label, because with private label, you'll own the buy box for your product that you listed on Amazon. Now, if you're doing wholesale, retail, or online arbitrage, or any other business model, you potentially, or most likely, will split it with somebody. We have a video on this. If you go back to our YouTube channel, it's talking about wholesale, but in that wholesale video, we talk a lot about the buy box. So look up, I think the video is just like a wholesale, best strategy for wholesaling on Amazon. And we also have a recent wholesale video as well, but essentially it's mostly, the buy box is mostly works by price point. So like if your price is within 2% of the lowest price, and you're also offering similar shipping times and cost, then Amazon will hopefully rotate you in the buy box with that seller at an equal rate. It may not be an exact science of 50-50 split, and just using the example of two sellers on the listing, it may not be an exact science, but ideally that's what's going to happen is you will split it with that seller 50-50 if Amazon deems you close enough, or eligible to win the buy box. And again, it's usually price point within 2% of the lowest price, shipping, and they really love FBA products. So if you're using FBA, that's a huge win for you. And then like the cost and speed of that shipping. So look into those as well. I think another thing too is your like storefront rating. So if you have a bunch of bad ratings, on your storefront, not just your product, your storefront, that's another thing that Amazon will look at. So I guess 3 criteria would be storefront rating, shipping, and then the cost, or your price.
Awesome.
Yep.
Hi JS team. When will you do the 6th season of the $1 Million Case Study? And how can I join the $1 Million Case Study Facebook group? The link on YouTube isn't working. Well, we'll take a look at that link. Thanks for the comment. Stay tuned for news about a new $1 Million Case Study. That is definitely something we're thinking about, and we might have more to share on that soon. All right, let's see. Whoops. All right, we'll wrap up today with this question. How much money would I need to start selling on Amazon? My favorite question. What do you think?
Yeah, $100.
$100.
It really just depends. I mean, there's 2 different ways of approaching Amazon. There's going really fast like we did, and we did a video on this actually, but we started with about like $5,000, but we had an extra $3,000 for a bunch of things that we really didn't need, but were nice to haves, like brand registry and all this nice photography, really advanced services that we could afford. But that's one way of going, is really fast if you have the funds to do it. If you don't, which is like a lot of sellers, you sort of bootstrap it, and you can start with as low as $1,000 in some cases and just order a couple hundred units of inventory. So you're most likely going to go out of stock at some point because you're only selling a couple, or you only have like a couple hundred to sell. But they're very feasible to do. I've seen people sell on Amazon for as low as $1,000.
Yeah.
If you have more, obviously that's great. You don't need to be brand registered. We talk about a lot of stuff in our videos of like nice to haves, but the only mandatory thing is inventory. So in a seller account, which you could either do professionally at $39.99 a month, or you could do it at $1 per sale until you get 40 sales per month, which would be that $40 per month. So you really just need to worry about the cost of Seller Central, which again is either $1 per unit or $48 per month, and then your inventory. And then of course, like shipping I'm sort of adding that into inventory. But I would say you can get started with as low as $1,000. Just depends on how fast you want to go, and I guess your per unit inventory cost. So you'd want to probably try to find a product that has under $10 or under $5 per unit cost, just so you can keep your costs down and have at least a couple hundred units of inventory in Amazon. So
yeah,
that's what I would say there.
Cool. Yeah, the only thing I'll add on to that is just the more you have, the quicker you'll grow. So you might be able to get started for $1,000, but most likely you're going to run out of inventory quite quickly. And then you might even need to add more money in to get the second order. And then the net result is that you're then out of stock for a few weeks or a month or a couple of months. Whereas if you had at least say 3,000 to 5,000 up front, then you would have, not run out of stock as quickly, or maybe not even at all, ideally. And basically just be able to grow quicker. So you can start with smaller amounts, but it's probably going to be a slower game. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, I'm gonna do one more question. I lied before. This one from Survival Geek says, please answer my question. Is the sale of virtual reality 3D glasses forbidden? Do they have any utility patent? I don't know about that product specifically, but that's where I would, some very basic things you can do is you can go to like Google Patents and then type in like virtual reality 3D glasses, or just go into Google virtual reality 3D VR 3D glasses or something, patent, and I'm sure it will appear if there is one. Another little kind of tip is if you go into Seller Central and actually go to add a new product, as if you're gonna sell a new product, you click on I'm selling a product that doesn't exist on Amazon, and then basically you can search for your type of product, and all of the different products will appear. If it's a gated category on Amazon or requires approval to sell, then it'll basically tell you. So this is like, you're not selling anything, you're just trying to add something, and basically it'll tell you if it's restricted or not on Amazon specifically. But yeah, otherwise use something like Google Patents. But definitely if you were going to sell these, then I would absolutely get a lawyer or someone to do a proper check. But before you even get to that point, you might be able to rule it out just by doing a Google search or use Google Patents.
Yeah.
All right, well, we've gone over well over the hour here. We hope you all have gotten some value from today. If so, let us know by giving us a thumbs up down below. We really appreciate you joining us, and we hope you join us for the next one of these, which will probably be in a couple of weeks. So thanks again for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.